The Marina slip fee was $850 a month. The seller had quoted it, the broker had confirmed it, and the buyer had built his entire budget around it. What nobody mentioned was the haul-out clause embedded in the Marina's standard lease agreement, a mandatory annual inspection requiring the vessel to be pulled from the water for hull assessment, bottom paint, and zincs, billed by the boatyard at a rate of between $40 and $70 per foot of vessel length plus labor. On a 40-foot boat, that one clause adds somewhere between $1,600 and $2,800 to the annual cost of a slip that was sold as $850 a month. But that number, the haul-out, is not the story. It is the first item on a ledger that runs to 6 pages. The monthly number was the visible edge. The real cost lives in the architecture underneath. This is a layered system, and it has at least 6 distinct moving parts. Each one is engineered to extract value from someone who has not yet run the arithmetic. And the question that governs everything that follows is this. In the Liveaboard equation, who actually captures the money? Where does it leave the owner's account? And whether anyone who commits to this life fully, no matter their strategy, no matter their preparation, ever truly escapes the underlying cost structure. That question cannot be answered in the first minute. It can only be answered at the end, when 3 very different people arrive at the same place by different routes. Before the ledger opens, though, it is worth spending time with the dream. Because the dream is real. It earns that word. There is a specific quality of light at 6 in the morning on a marina that does not exist anywhere on land. Amber, low, catching the water in flat sheets, the rigging of nearby boats casting thin shadows across teak decks that are still cool from the night. The vocabulary used by people in this world is its own seduction: apparent wind, tidal range, anchor scope, the names of passages and inlets spoken with the familiarity of street addresses. People who live aboard speak of tides the way people on land speak of traffic, as an intimate inconvenience, a system they have learned to read. The identity being offered here is not merely accommodation. It is self-sufficiency made visible, a life organized around natural forces rather than lease agreements and landlords. Freedom expressed in the particular form of a vessel that can, in theory, leave at any time. The clothing is practical and specific. Foul weather gear hung by the companionway, deck shoes with soles that grip wet fiberglass, a handheld VHF radio on the chart table. The spaces are small, and deliberately so, a galley the size of a closet in which people cook real meals, a V-berth that teaches you to sleep with the motion of water, a saloon table that converts and stores and serves 3 purposes at once. The minimalism is not deprivation. It is edited, and the specific pleasure of casting off dock lines and moving under your own power through water past fixed things is genuine. It does not need to be oversold. The people who choose this life are not deceived about its difficulty. They are choosing a specific trade. The arithmetic for the moment is deferred. The commitment is made in daylight with coffee, watching a pelican work the channel. Now the ledger opens. The first benchmark is maintenance. On a vessel used as a primary residence, maintenance costs run between 10 and 15% of the boat's market value per year. On a vessel purchased for between $80,000 and $150,000, a realistic range for a liveaboard-capable cruising boat in reasonable condition, that produces an annual maintenance figure of between $8,000 and $22,000. Not in a crisis year, in an ordinary year when nothing catastrophic fails. That figure covers the haul-out, the standing and running rigging inspection, the engine service, the raw water impeller replacement, the through-hull fittings, the electrical system, the holding tank pump-out, and the incidentals that arrive every quarter with the reliability of a subscription. The second benchmark is slip fees. In a marina that accepts liveaboards, and many do not, monthly fees range from $600 in a secondary market to over $2,000 in a coastal metropolitan area. Annualized, that is between $7,000 and $24,000 for the right to remain stationary in a place with shore power and access to a bathroom that doesn't require a pump. The third benchmark is insurance. A liveaboard vessel requires a marine policy that covers both the hull and the liability of a person living aboard, and that policy, when the insurer accepts the risk at all, costs between 1.5% and 2.5% of the vessel's insured value per year. On a boat insured for $100,000, that is $1,500 to $2,500 annually, before any claims, before any survey-triggered exclusions, and before the hurricane clause that voids coverage if the vessel is not moved to an approved location during named storms. Bundle all three. On a modest but functional liveaboard, the baseline cost of simply owning and mooring the vessel, before food, before fuel, before any improvement, runs between $17,000 and $50,000 per year. These are not worst-case projections. They are the ordinary expected numbers for someone who has done the homework and bought well. The dream is real. The invoice is also real. What is advertised as freedom has a fixed overhead, and that overhead does not negotiate. Here is the first escape route that reasonable people try. Buy the right boat and costs stay manageable. The argument is seductive because it contains a partial truth. A well-maintained, survey-clean, newer-build vessel does cost less to operate in the short term than an older one with deferred work. The broker makes this argument. The surveyor, commissioned to assess a specific vessel, has a structural incentive to be thorough about what he finds, but no incentive to describe the general arc of marine maintenance costs over time. So the buyer hears that this boat is in good condition, which may be entirely true, and converts that assessment into a belief that costs will be lower than average. They will not be. Marine systems age on known curves. Fiberglass osmotic blistering develops on its own schedule, regardless of how carefully the boat was kept. Electrical wiring in a salt environment degrades. Diesel engines in intermittent use suffer differently than those run daily. The condition of the vessel at purchase predicts the timing of major costs, not their eventual arrival. A boat in excellent condition delays the curve, it does not remove it. The person who buys well still hauls out every year, still pays the slip, still insures the hull, still replaces the impeller on the raw water pump with a frequency that makes it feel like a subscription service because it is. What changes between a well-bought boat and a poorly bought one is not whether the costs come, it is only the calendar. A clean survey is a short extension on a payment plan that was already in effect the moment the vessel left the factory. The first escape route closes with arithmetic that is indifferent to preparation. The second escape route is the anchor-out strategy. Instead of paying Marina fees, the vessel is kept on a mooring ball or at anchor in a protected anchorage, reducing or eliminating the monthly slip cost. In some regions, public anchorages exist where no fee applies at all. The arithmetic appears decisive. Eliminating a $1,200 monthly slip fee saves $14,400 annually. That is real money. What changes with the anchor-out life is the cost structure of everything adjacent to the slip. Shore power disappears. The Liveaboard now runs the vessel's housebank from solar panels, a wind generator, a generator burning diesel, or some combination of the three. The generator fuel, cost alone, on a vessel without adequate solar, runs between $100 and $300 a month depending on usage, recoverable but real. The dinghy becomes the car. Outboard fuel, maintenance on a small engine used daily in saltwater, and the time cost of commuting from anchorage to shore converts the saved slip fee into a different category of expenditure rather than an elimination of it. More significantly, the anchor-out strategy is increasingly constrained by municipal regulation. Cities and counties across the coastal United States and in several European jurisdictions have moved to restrict long-term anchorage in public waters, citing sanitation, derelict vessels, and navigation hazard concerns. Fact to verify. The specific legal status of any given anchorage can change on a timeline shorter than the planning horizon of someone who bought a boat on the basis of its availability. The person who anchors out to avoid slip fees may find within 18 months that the free anchorage now requires a permit. The permit has a wait list, and the alternative is moving the vessel to a marina, the cost the strategy was designed to avoid. What was a strategic choice becomes a conditional one, dependent on a regulatory environment that has not been stable and shows no sign of becoming so. Escaping the marina means accepting a different kind of tenure, one that does not belong to the owner of the vessel and cannot be secured by any amount of preparation. Ownership of the boat and tenure of the water are two entirely separate arrangements. This is the moment to note that this kind of structural breakdown, mechanism over marketing, arithmetic over sales language, is published here regularly. It is worth following for anyone who prefers to understand the system before entering it. Back to the ledger. The third escape route is the Liveaboard community's most cherished thesis: buy in cash, owe nothing, eliminate the loan payment, and the cost equation becomes survivable. The argument is the strongest of the three. A vessel purchased outright carries no monthly debt service, no interest compounding against a depreciating asset, no lender requiring the hull to be insured at replacement value on their schedule rather than the owner's. These are genuine advantages. The cash buyer is, in one specific dimension, freer than the financed one. The dimension in which the cash buyer is not free is every other one. The maintenance benchmark does not discount for the absence of debt. The slip fee does not recognize the sacrifice made to buy without financing. The hull insurance, which the cash buyer might theoretically reduce, in practice cannot be eliminated by anyone using a marina, because marinas require proof of liability coverage as a condition of occupancy. The cash buyer's vessel still depreciates. Marine vessels lose value on a curve that depends on material, age and use, but the general direction is consistent and unambiguous. A fiberglass production cruiser purchased today for $100,000 in good condition will not be worth $100,000 in 10 years. Fact to verify. The rate of depreciation and the cost of maintenance often move in opposite directions. The older the vessel gets, the more it costs to keep seaworthy, and the less it is worth on the market. Cash eliminates one line item. It inherits all the others. 3 people entered the Liveaboard life through 3 different doors. The first used financing, a marine loan, at a rate between 7 and 11% on a vessel appraised at $120,000. Monthly debt service runs between $1,200 and $1,800 depending on term, layered on top of the slip, insurance and maintenance baseline. This person's annual outlay, conservatively, sits between $35,000 and $60,000. They knew about the loan. They did not know when they signed that the loan balance would decline more slowly than the vessel's market value during the first several years of the term, because marine loans front-load interest and vessels depreciate immediately. At year 3, the boat may be worth $85,000. The loan balance may still be $94,000. The owner is underwater on a vessel that is literally in water. The financing was disclosed in every document. The relationship between the amortization schedule and the depreciation curve was disclosed in none of them. The second person used the anchor-out strategy, bought without a slip, and reduced monthly costs by a genuine $1,400. She is, by the numbers, ahead of the Marina dweller for the first year. By year 2, the dinghy outboard has been replaced. The anchorage has received its first notice of regulatory review. The holding tank system, used more intensively without Marina pump-out access, required a replacement that cost $800 and a boatyard visit. The savings are narrowing. By year 3, the anchorage requires a permit. The permit costs $400 and limits continuous occupancy to 45 days before the vessel must move. She moves to a marina. The slip costs $1,200 a month. The 3-year calculation, run in full, shows that the anchor-out strategy saved her approximately $4,000 over the period, roughly $1,100 per year, while adding measurable operational complexity and regulatory uncertainty to every month of it. She is not worse off. She is not as far ahead as the original arithmetic suggested. The third person paid cash. He owes nothing. His annual outlay, running the baseline costs, slip, insurance, maintenance, lands between $17,000 and $38,000, depending on what the boat requires in a given year. He is the most financially stable of the 3. He is also, in year 7, facing a major refit, standing rigging replacement, new sails, a diesel engine that has reached its service interval, and a hull that has developed blisters below the waterline requiring professional remediation. The estimate is between $22,000 and $40,000. He has no loan. He also has no reserve because the annual baseline costs consumed the margin he allocated for contingency. He defers the refit. A deferred refit is a compounding cost. The specifics differ between all 3 people. The destination is the same, a system in which the owner absorbs the maintenance burden of an asset that depreciates in a regulatory environment that does not belong to them, at a cost that the original purchase price did not communicate, and the selling process had no structural incentive to communicate clearly. Who gets paid, and in what order? The Marina collects first every month in advance. The insurer collects annually, regardless of whether any claim is made. The boatyard collects when the hull comes out of the water, which it must. The diesel supplier, the chandlery, the rigger, the marine electrician, they collect as the systems age. The broker collected at the beginning, once from the transaction, with an incentive structure that rewarded closing over informing. The owner pays all of them and absorbs whatever remains. The depreciation, the regulatory uncertainty, the weather, the equipment failure at the wrong tide. This is not an accident. It is the arrangement produced by contracts and incentives that operate in plain sight, in documents available to anyone who reads them before signing rather than after. What is sold as a life lived outside the system is a life lived inside a different system with a different set of fixed costs, a different landlord in the form of the marina or the municipality, and a different rate of asset decay. The clarity available to anyone entering this life is not a guarantee of lower cost. It is only the advantage of knowing what the costs are before they arrive. The map of this life was never drawn to make the crossing look easy. Now you know where it leads.